Hi everyone, welcome to this video tutorial and overview of the 2017 Core Mission Profile. To try and help make it easier for you to find the information you're looking for quickly, we've broken this video into 4 main parts. And you can see these are the 4 different sections here. A welcome and overview. We're going to talk about what's new with this year's materials. We'll take you on a walkthrough of the document and the form itself. And we'll talk about how to save your form. And if you want to skip ahead to one of those topics, I've put the time where they appear in the video here. I thought that it might make sense to begin by sharing the results of the 2 survey questions that we included at the end of last year's form. And you can see here the first question was asking if the online version of the Core Mission Profile was an improvement on the previous year. And you can see the results here. And there were some folks who really didn't like it, so about 10% disagreed that it was an improvement, and 90% either agreed or strongly agreed that it was an improvement. And then the second question was asking if it was easy to use, and you can see there are similar results here. So we're pleased that last year's form was thought to be an improvement. At the same time, we're continually working to improve this document and the process so that it's user-friendly and effectively addresses the concerns, challenges, and needs of stakeholders at the core, divisional, and territorial levels. With that said, we have made a few changes to this year's form based on feedback we received from the core as well as the divisions. And I'll get into what those changes are in a minute. But first, let's get acquainted with the different components of the Core Mission Profile materials. So I already have my browser open, so we're just going to type SA Connects into the address bar, hit enter. And from here, just go over to the search icon, little magnifying glass, click on that, type in Core Mission Profile, and it should be the first post that pops up here. Click on that. Okay, the first thing you'll likely notice will be 2 videos here. The first one is a message from Territorial Program Secretary Lieutenant Colonel James Labossiere, where he outlines the purpose, scope, and importance of the Core Mission Profile process. And under that, you don't see it here now because I haven't added it to the post yet, but you will find the video that you're watching now, the Core Mission Profile video tutorial and walkthrough. Below that is some text about what the Core Mission Profile is all about. And down here under the green button, you'll find 2 attachments. The first is a PDF version of the Core Mission Profile document. You'll also find a copy in Spanish. That's coming soon. It's not here yet, but this is where you'll find that as well. And below that is a copy of the Core Schedule of Activities document. And then up here, you'll see this large green button. Clicking on that will take you to the online Core Mission Profile submission forms. So that's just a quick overview of where to find everything. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about what's new for this year's Core Mission Profile. As I mentioned, this year the Core Mission Profile is being offered in Spanish, so that's one significant difference. And it's not just the PDF document that's in Spanish. The online submission form features a Spanish option as well, and I'll show you that in a minute, how to access that. But for now, let's take a look at the Core Mission Profile document here. So that's the first one here. Let's click on it, and that'll open it up. The first thing you may notice is that the cover is sporting the 2020 Vision logo. On page 2, you'll find some introductory text that you'll want to check out. And beginning on pages 3 and the first half of page 4, you'll find the specific 2020 goals listed there. These are broken out into the 3 main categories I'm sure you're already aware of: people, programs, and provisions. You'll probably want to familiarize yourself with these as they will be important to you and your team as you engage in the review and planning stages of this process. Down here on the second half of page 4, you'll see a section called Outlining the Process, which, well, it outlines the process. You'll see in the text here that each of these 4 steps are essential. Gather your team, seek the spirit, tell your story, and plan next steps. You'll then see the Army Essentials chart here on the next page. The balanced required minimum standards, which I think everyone is familiar with by now, but it's here again for you to use as a reference. Now, I know I've already begun talking about what's new, but one thing that is the same as last year are the questions in the document themselves. There are really no new questions this year. Rather, what we've done is organized the existing questions so that they fall under one of the three 2020 categories of people, programs, or provisions. I think the other big difference that people will notice are these core assessment sections. And you can see the first one is here on page 7. This is where core are asked to assign a numerical rating to their performance in different areas that directly relate to the 2020 goals. During the course of this past year, a diverse group of Salvationists from across the territory gathered with the purpose of coming up with ways that the core mission profile can be a greater assessment tool for the core. And this simple addition was a recommendation of that group. This tool is one that should add some additional value to the core review process. On page 12, you'll find a section called Courageous Steps. Last year, this section was called Strategic Projections, and the year before that, it was called Faith Steps. Based on some of the feedback we received, we've chosen this year to name this section Courageous Steps, which is perhaps mainly a semantic difference, but it's one that was important to some. But besides that, the idea here is largely the same. This is the part of the core mission profile where each core outlines specific plans for ministry moving forward. And you'll see the SMART goals chart, which should be familiar to everyone by now. Directly under that are 3 questions asking core to outline a plan for the enrollment and cultivation of candidates and soldiers. And on the next page is where core are asked to outline specific steps they plan to take in the coming year that relate to specific 2020 goals. The last thing that is new this year is on the next page. That's called the big idea. The idea here is twofold. First of all, this provides an opportunity for core to think big, think outside the box. There's a recognition here that there may be opportunities for ministry that don't fit neatly or squarely within the scope of the questions already asked. And the second part of this section is just specifically asking about viable ideas that have come from the soldiery in the core, or from those who weren't necessarily a part of the core mission profile planning team. All right, so we've covered everything that's new about this year's core mission profile. Let's get into the online submission form and how to submit and save that. Even before that, though, one of the first things you might want to do is save a local copy of this document, which you can then share electronically with your team if you'd like. Also, you may want to print the document, which will be helpful as a worksheet as you work through this document with your team or in completing the online submission form. And you can do that by using these buttons up in the right-hand corner. This one's to print, this one's to download it. Okay, so now let's go back to the post on SA Connects. And we're going to click on that big green button, which will take us to the online form. All right, so here it is. We're now looking at the actual online form. The first thing I want to bring your attention to is right here where it says, click here to find a video tutorial covering how to navigate and complete the online version, etc. Clicking here will take you back to the post on SA Connects where you'll find the video tutorial. We thought that this would help you quickly navigate to the video whenever you may need that reference. Below that, you have some instructions here on how to save your form so that if you're working on this and need to come back and complete working on it at another time, you'll be able to do that. This is an area where there's continued to be a little bit of confusion, so I'm going to address that a little bit later on in the video. Now, to the right of this long gray ribbon, you'll see an area where it says Language, and then the default setting is English. If you left click here, there's a little drop down menu where you can select Espanol. And clicking that will present the entire form in Spanish. Now, it's not doing it at the moment because we haven't entered that translation yet, but this is a feature that will be available soon, so look for that. Under that, you'll see this wide white ribbon that shows you the various sections of the form, and there are 8 of them to complete. One of the things we would have liked to added to this year's form was the ability to use this ribbon as a navigation tool to kind of go back and forth quickly between the different sections of the form. Unfortunately, the vendor we're working with was not able to make that change for us. However, it's still fairly easy to navigate back and forth through the form by quickly scrolling and clicking. And I'll just demonstrate quickly how fast that can be. You scroll down to the bottom of the page, hit the green next page button, and you can see within a matter of a few seconds, I'm already at the 5th section. And I can go backwards as well by hitting previous. So admittedly, slightly less convenient than we would prefer, but manageable. So anyway, right now we're looking at the first of those sections where we're asked to just enter some basic information. So we can do that now. You can see a date box pops up, highlighting today's date. And then you're asked to select your division. And they're all listed here. If you're from Empire, there are some different ones you'll want to be aware of. I'm from the New Jersey division, so I'm going to click that. You're asked to select your corps. And these are in alphabetical order, so you can kind of scroll through them and find your corps. Or there's a search bar here you can kind of enter in and quickly find your corps. Click on that, just like that. Enter your name. Enter your email. Please just double check to make sure that you've entered that correctly. And then you'll enter in your phone number there and click next page. That brings us to the people section, where you'll notice that at the top of the page, you'll still see the link to the video tutorial and the instructions on how to save. Those will remain on the top of every page for your reference there. And then down here, we're asked to answer some questions that don't really require any further explanation now. And you can see that there are these big fields here where you can enter your response. You might feel the need to include a longer response than the field provides, and you can absolutely do that. There's no word limit here. If you do enter a response that's longer than the field, you can hover over the lower right-hand corner of the field, left-click, and drag that to expand it. Scrolling further down the page, you'll see we have the core assessment section for people, where you're asked to rate core performance in each category numerically, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. As your team discusses these areas, you'll want to refer back to the 2020 vision outline on page 3 of the PDF version of the core mission profile document for guidance on assigning a rating in each area. Here are the people goals you want to perhaps have there as a reference as you work through those questions. The idea here is to help core make the abstract concrete to some extent. By assigning these different areas a score, it can help highlight possible areas that perhaps require greater attention or consideration when making plans for the coming year. And there is some text, let me go back to the form, here explaining how to do that. I wouldn't quite call this a rubric, but these are some helpful factors that you'll want to consider when thinking about how to rate your core in a given area. And you can see here, there are 3 things sort of narrating a spectrum of possibilities that should be helpful. Basically, you'll want to read each of the categories against these questions. So for example, if I'm looking at the category of visitor follow-up, one thing I may want to consider with my team is asking, to what extent is follow-up being carried out by reliable leadership or competent local soldiers as opposed to solely officer-led initiatives? Are the officers having to do this, or do we have competent soldiery that are handling this? That's just one way of trying to get at that question. The next 2 pages relate to programs and provisions, respectively. And the procedure there is the same as it was for the people section. And there are some more narrative-focused questions, as well as the core assessment. Now, the next page, Year in Review, asks you to outline what last year's SMART goals were. And if you're not sure, Perhaps you're in a new appointment or you just can't remember. You'll want to go ahead and contact your divisional program secretary, who will be able to get that information to you. And there's a second question asking about what the outcomes or results of those goals have been over the last year. All right, so let's go to the next page, which is courageous steps. As I mentioned before, in recent years, this has been called faith steps as well as strategic projections, but the basic idea remains the same. This is the section where Corps are asked to consider their assets, strengths, weaknesses, mission opportunities, etc., and commit to courageous steps that are very specific. Besides the semantic adjustment we've already talked about, there are two slight differences this year. First of all, there are a few questions asking Corps to set specific goals relating to the cultivation and recruitment of candidate soldiers and junior soldiers. And you can see those here. And as in years past, we've provided the SMART goals chart right here to help you formulate good responses to each of these questions. And if you click here, you'll be able to watch a short video helping to explain the importance of SMART goals and how to create one. I think there's been a little bit confusion of how exactly to create a SMART goal, so we just wanted to add an extra little resource there for you to help you do that. Okay, then down here, Corps are asked to outline 2 goals for each 2020 category. So 2 for people, 2 for programs, and 2 for provisions. And for each of those, Corps are asked to identify which specific 2020 goal is being addressed by the goal your Corps has set. All you have to do is click from the drop-down menu, pick the 2020 goal, and enter your SMART goal into the field here. So for example, under people, I may pick cross-cultural ministry, and then enter my SMART goal there. Following this format can be a little bit challenging, but it can also be an extremely productive exercise to really think through in a robust way goals for the future of the Corps. So I'll give one example, and keep in mind that this isn't meant to be suggestive in any way, but more demonstrative. All right, let's suppose that our Corps has decided that follow-up should be a priority during the coming year because, through the conversations that we've had, we've recognized that we're not doing so well connecting with new people coming through our doors. So an example of a possible SMART goal for this might look something like, because we want to be more hospitable and welcoming to visitors and newcomers at the Corps, we will commission a welcome/recruiting sergeant whose responsibility will be to welcome and connect with every new person who enters our doors on Sunday, gathering the newcomer's contact information for further follow-up. Additionally, we will empower this individual to form a team, if necessary, to help with this process: in-person visitation, phone calls, invitations to come back to the Corps, etc. Over the course of the next year, our goal is that by this strategy, we will have connected 12 new people as regularly attending members of the Corps community. Now, it's a bit long, but it's very specific. And what makes this a SMART goal is, first of all, that it is highly specific in that it addresses the usual why, who, what, where, and when, as well as how. It's measurable because 12 new regularly attending members is something that can be easily measured. It's certainly achievable. It's relevant to the 2020 vision, as well as to our desire to be a more hospitable community and to grow our congregation. And it's time-bound in that it gives us a year to accomplish that goal. And so again, that's just an example, but you may notice in it there are additional courageous steps that we could point to. For example, the installation of a new local officer position connects with the people goal of candidates or soldiership, perhaps. And so if we were to simply say that a certain number of the people we've now connected to the Corps by virtue of this strategy will become soldiers, that's a good way of knocking out 3 distinct goals in a single strategy. And there are certainly others you could probably think of on your own. So there's a good amount of overlapping and integration that's possible here. Be creative. Once you've completed outlining the courageous steps, you can move on to the big idea section of the form, which I've already discussed on the next page. And you can just fill that in. And then on the final page of the form, you'll have an area here where you add files as an attachment. So if you have any supporting documents that you want to include, you can do that. And you can add as many as you like. It's very simple to do. Just click where it says Add Files, and you can pick whatever you need. For example, you may have some core council minutes you want to attach, or perhaps this picture of Mr. Burns saying excellent, and you can just click Open, and you'll need to make sure that you click Upload. And it gives you this little green check mark indicating that it's successfully been uploaded there. And if you decide you don't want to include that, you can just delete it there. And depending on the size of the files, or if you have a lot of them, it might take a minute to upload those. But again, it'll give you that little green check mark to let you know when it's ready. Then you're asked to list the names of everyone who contributed to the core mission profile process at your core. So you'll put all the members of your team there. And this field here, asking about any additional comments, questions, or suggestions, is sort of our catch-all. This is an opportunity for you to share anything that maybe didn't fit neatly into one of the other questions, offer any concerns, comments, questions, etc., either about the core mission profile process itself or anything else. Finally, there's these 2 survey questions that just help give us an idea about how we're doing, and they're the same ones that we asked last year. And so you can just agree or disagree with those statements. Then you have an option here where it says Preview Submission. It gives you an opportunity to review the entire form. But it's given me a heads up that I need to put some text in these fields. And let's try that again. So from here, you can see, are there any fields that maybe you left empty? And of course, there are a bunch here that I did because this is just a test. And you can kind of read through, see if there's anything I want to change. And once you're happy with everything, all the way down at the bottom, hit Send. And before I do that, keep in mind that until you hit this button, Send, your form will be marked as incomplete. Let's click it. And you can see that you'll get this message thanking you for your submission along with a link. If you want the ability to go back and edit your form later on, you can go ahead and save this link. And I'll talk about how to do that in just a moment. Once you've hit the green button where it says Send, the system is going to do a few things. It's going to automatically generate an email both to you and your divisional program secretary or other designated personnel. And attached to that email will be a PDF copy of your submitted form. While this information is archived within the system, I still recommend saving a copy of this file locally, not only for your records, but also for regular review by your team throughout the year, as this is really meant to be a living document and a blueprint for ongoing strategic action among your team. All right, now let's talk about how to save our work. Let's suppose that we've been working on filling out this form for a while and we need to stop and take a break for whatever reason. You can save your work at any time by clicking at the bottom of the page where it says Save for Later. Once you do that, you can see that it will generate a unique link. You'll need this link to be able to come back and continue working later on. So there are 2 ways of doing this. The first way is by right-clicking on this little link icon. That should give you the option to bookmark it. And you can see that the option is given here. Bookmark this link. Left click there. And you can call this whatever you want. I'm going to call it CMP. And you can put that wherever you want. I'm just going to put it in other bookmarks. Hit save. That way, when I want to go back to it, I have that link saved in my bookmarks. Let's open up a new window. If I put in CMP, you can see it's right here. and all the information I had already put in is still there. The second option would be to copy the link by first left-clicking in the field, which highlights the whole thing, then right-clicking, which should allow you to copy the link, and then go over to Lotus Notes, and let's draft a new message, address that to ourselves. I'll put CMP link in the subject line. You can put whatever you like. And then just copy that into the body of the email. Hit send, and then you'll have the link in your email so you can get back to it that way. Both ways are good. I recommend doing both just so you don't misplace it. But if you do happen to misplace the link or lose it, don't worry. You'll just need to contact your divisional program secretary and they'll be able to retrieve it for you. Also, let's say you're working on this and you accidentally close the browser or something like that. Don't worry, your information is saved as you go, so it should be in the system and your divisional program secretary should be able to help you there as well. One thing I do need to advise against, though, is if you're working on filling out a page of the form, and let me put some text in here. Just mash the keyboard so you can see some text. If you're working on this and then decide to go to the previous page, so let's scroll down, hit previous, scroll down again, and go to the next page, so we're back where we started. You can see that text is not here. The reason for that is that the system only saves your work either when you specifically save it by clicking Save for Later or by clicking Next Page. So let me go back up. Again, put some text in here. Scroll down, click Next Page, and then hit Previous Page. You can see my text is still there. The system has saved it. All right, I think that just about covers everything. I hope that you found this video helpful. Feel free to come back here and view this anytime you like. Have a great day.